You were listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit, the ultimate WoW Shock Jock show, the only WoW Shock Jock show, come to think of it. That's because I killed every last one of the others. The competition slaughtered upon the field of battles was glorious. Glorious. Right. Speaking of glory, or inglory, whichever you prefer. So, Insidia made a bit of a boo-boo, it would appear. This happened about a week or so ago, and there's been a lot of fallout over the past week about this, so I'd like to discuss this in great detail. I'd also like to invite you to contribute to the discussion by emailing in your opinions on this to themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com, and yes, I will happily read dissenting opinions, although I may disagree with them, live on stage. So, let's talk about this. This is what happened. The world first kill of the Lich King in 25-man mode. Sort of, kind of, maybe, exploits. Maybe. So, here's what happened. We had Insidia kill the Lich King on a world first. Yeah? And there was a bug with the world first kill. What it happened to be was a case of Saronite bombs, of all things, were causing the platform, which is supposed to fall away in pieces, to reset. Now, the result of this was that apparently there's a part of the fight whereby Valkyr pick up the raid members, and if they're not DPS down quick enough, will drop them off the edge. Now, of course, that's going to be a little bit of an issue, because they're going to die. Now, of course, if the platform comes back, then they're not going to be dropped off the edge. So, yeah, apparently that's how it works, something along those lines. Anyway, whatever the case, Saronite bombs reformed the platform. The pieces that broke away came back when Saronite bombs were used. Now, as a result of this, apparently, Insidia killed the Lich King world first with this bug in place. Later that night, they were banned as a result of this, 72-hour ban for exploiting game mechanics. So, is it a cut and dry issue? Were Insidia simply exploiting, or is it a little bit more complex than that? Well, this is a really complex issue that we've debated at great length over the past week, so it should be a nice, good discussion topic. Now, what I will say is, if you sent emails on this last week, please resend them, because they are now buried in the depths of my inbox. So, themurloc@gmail.com with your opinions on this particular matter. Just send it on over. That's the easiest way. So, here we go. My first impression of this is that, hey, Blizzard made another mistake and screwed up another endgame boss fight. How many does that make now? Well, I can tell you a little bit later on when we go and visit Kungan's blog to tell you a little bit about his opinion on this. Kungan, of course, the guild leader for Insidia. So, it looks like Blizzard screwed up again, and one of their supposedly internally tested bosses had a fatal flaw in it. Now, you might say, well, that's not too much of a fatal flaw. It's so obscure they couldn't have possibly caught it. Well, really, you know what that tells me? That tells me that Blizzard isn't testing properly. And you might say, well, Total Biscuit, that's so unfair. Now, this is something that no one does this. No one uses Saronite bombs in raids. Well, really. Okay, ElitistJerks.com, ladies and gentlemen. Head over to the forums and look at the Rogue Guide, the Pocket Rogue Guide, and tell me which profession you see at the top DPS for rogues. Yes, you will find it is engineering with Saronite bombs in the rotation. Shocker, really. So, in other words, in Elitist Jerks, the best raiding forum on the damn planet, consisting of people posting there who are extremely knowledgeable, realizes that, indeed, Saronite bombs are an important part of the rogue rotation if you want to min-max. Okay, fair enough. But, of course, Blizzard don't read the EJ forums, right? Wrong. Yes, they do. They have admitted to doing so repeatedly. So, yes, Elitist Jerks is taken into consideration. And more to the point, why should they have to? They don't have to read those forums to know that that is the case. Simple mathematics. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know the professions that you created, then you should know which is the most competitive DPS for a different class. It's not hard to, and it's not unreasonable at all, to expect that Blizzard would know this. It isn't. It's not unreasonable. Why would it be unreasonable? Someone give me a good reason as to why that's unreasonable. You can't, can you? Because it isn't. It's not an unreasonable suggestion. Right, so, we've established then that Blizzard really should have known that this was going to happen. However, does that still, does that get rid of Insidia's blame entirely? Does it absolve them of all guilt? Well, no, not really. So, here's the problem. Insidia made a big error, yeah? They screwed up somewhat, and this is how they did it. They announced the world first kill, and then only later on edited in something about the bug, and that was before they got banned. That was a PR disaster, and trust me, I am an expert in these matters. Really. That was a total PR disaster on their point. They should have said it, full disclosure from the very start, hey, look, we killed it, there were bugs. Now, you can follow that up with whatever you want. Say, we killed it, there were bugs. Oh, look, yet another endgame fight bugged by Blizzard. There's something to say. If you want to rally the player base against Blizzard and affect real change, then you yourselves have to be ambassadors. You do. You're one of the top rating guilds on the planet. This goes to anyone else. We're talking about bad ambassadors and PR disasters. Let's look at Exodus, of all people. Exodus, who managed to piss off half the players in the damn game. Exodus, the ones who demonstrated thinly veiled racism on their front page, bragged about their kill, and then, of course, got banned because they were blatantly exploiting the encounter. That was Yogg plus Zero a while ago. Got into fights with a bunch of other really good endgame guilds. Yeah, what ambassadors they were for the raiding community. You know what that managed to do? Yeah, that managed to alienate the raiders from the rest of the player base, because now, yes, they are seeing the raiding base and the hardcore raiding guilds as elitist jerks in the literal sense. And we're talking about arrogant, cheating, exploiting people that don't want to play fair and ruin everything for the rest of us. And therein lies the problem. You cannot have that happen. The only way you can push the agenda of the hardcore raider is to ensure that the player base is on your side when you do it. Yes, you have to resort to populism. Now, there's one thing, unfortunately, that the player base in general, the player base at large, loves more than criticizing Blizzard, and that's criticizing hardcore raiding guilds. They love it. They're like piranha. They smell a sense of blood and then they swarm. And of course they swarmed on Insidia. Does that surprise you in any way? It certainly shouldn't. So, again, Insidia screwed up there. They could have potentially rallied the player base, but they didn't. Now, most guilds really wouldn't have to consider this kind of thing. They wouldn't have to consider PR, of all things. But these are not just any guilds. These are the top 20. These are the guys who people do look up to, and they've got to be extremely careful with how they proceed. When they say something like this on their front page, you can say whatever the hell you want in your blog. You can disclaim that. It's easy to say, well, the opinions of Mech or the opinions of Kungan or whatever do not necessarily represent the opinions of the entire Insidia guild, but when you post it on your front page and announce the world first, then yes, it can represent it, and they screwed up. But here's the thing, this is my opinion, that is the only time in this entire debacle that they screwed up. So some people have argued that they deliberately exploited the encounter. So I want to look at the definition of an exploit, folks, because here is how I define an exploit. I can tell you. So, to me, an exploit and exploiting requires the same kind of requirements that a crime in the real world would. Yeah? Two legal principles for you here, ladies and gents. Two Latin terms, actus reus and mens rea. Yeah? Actus reus is effectively the act itself, and mens rea is the state of mind in which the person was in when they committed the act. That's layman's terms for you. You could write an entire book on the definition of mens rea, but there you go. So, you require those two components in order for a crime to be committed. Say, let's think about murder, for instance, yeah? The act of killing another human being is the actus reus of murder, yeah? However, the actual state of mind that you're in when you do it is the mens rea. So, in order for it to be murder, instead of, say, manslaughter, you have to be deliberately trying to either kill someone or cause grievous bodily harm. Yeah? So either you are going to be trying to, or you've got to know in the back of your mind that what you are doing to them is likely to cause death. Otherwise, it ain't murder. Yeah? And of course, it's an extreme example, and you wonder why I'm mentioning murder in the same sentence as exploit, but it's the best way to demonstrate what actus reus and mens rea means. So let's apply this to WoW. Yeah? Let's apply actus reus and the mens rea principles to WoW in terms of exploiting. So in the concept of WoW, exploiting is a crime. So what is the actus reus of exploiting? Yeah? Okay, let's come up with one. The actus reus of exploiting is to circumvent the game mechanics in a way that, in an unintended fashion, that gives you a advantage within the game. Yeah? That's how it is. And Actus Reus is not spelled that way, Thrace, I'm sorry. Actusreus, as I recall. It's been a few years since I did law, but I think that's how you spell it. Anyway, so that's the Actus Reus. So, the mens rea. What is the mens rea of this particular crime, quote-unquote? The mens rea is, it's quite simply one word, deliberately. Yeah? Deliberately do it. You have got to know that your actions are either causing the exploit to happen or are reasonably likely to do so. Yeah? The reasonable man would believe this. Okay? Let's think about it. So, here's an example. Would the following example be an exploit? Eh? I walk into Ogrimmar, I activate Arcane Power, and some troll over there keels over dead and loses all his gear. Is that an exploit? Okay, let's look at the Actus Reus. Eh? Deliberately... Well, no, the Actus Reus is circumventing the game mechanics in a way that is unintended. Yeah? So, he falls over there. So, that doesn't even fulfill the Actus Reus because it's got to have a distinct advantage within the game. It's not an advantage for that troll to fall over dead. So, let's look at another example. Okay, so I am in a battleground. I press my Arcane Power button, and then the entire Alliance team falls over and disconnects. So, what is that? Does it fulfill the Actus Reus? Okay, let's have a look at it. So, what's an exploit? You can remember. It's circumventing the game mechanics in an unintended fashion which allows for a distinct advantage. Okay? There's the Actus Reus. However, when I pressed Arcane Power, I might have intended to kill one Alliance member, but I certainly did not intend or foresee the entire Alliance raid on the other side disconnecting. So, thereby, the mens rea is not fulfilled, so the crime has not been committed. I did not know that was going to happen, and I could not have reasonably suspected that that was going to happen. Okay, so here's another thought. What if I reasonably suspected? What would be required for me to reasonably suspect? Yeah? I don't know that that's going to happen. Yeah? I do not know 100% that pressing the Arcane Power button is going to cause the entire Alliance raid on the other side to disconnect. And indeed, disconnections are not an instant, so I don't know that. Okay, so what would be required to reasonably suspect? Okay, so I push the Arcane Power button, and there's 3 Alliance in front of me, and they suddenly start running on the spot. Okay, so do I reasonably suspect? Well, no, not initially, because that could just be a coincidence. I would have to do it several times to be sure of that. Yeah, and that's a very, very visual thing, and that also assumes a few things, yeah? I have got to be standing and looking and noticing that this is happening. So, I might get a bit of tunnel vision because I'm in PvP and I am concentrating on the fight. So, I'm not noticing that when I hit... Because my Arcane Power is part of a trinket macro. Yeah? So, I push that and it does 3 different things. It activates... Actually, 4 maybe. Activates Arcane Power, activates my trinket, activates Berserking, activates Icy Veins. Yeah? And as someone kindly pointed out in the IRC channel, what if it's not that? What if it just happens to be a coincidence? What if it's just lag that causes that to happen? Yeah? I have to be reasonably certain that I am causing that issue. Now, here's the thing. Let's apply this to the Insidia example. Yeah? We need the... let's just back up and say that we need the Actus Reus and the mens rea for the crime to have been committed. Yeah? And we've given what appears to be a reasonable definition of an exploit there. I don't really see any issues. So, okay, let's go back and look at this. Right. So here's what happens. You use a Saronite bomb, and by doing so, the platform reforms. Yeah? Bits of the platform come back. Okay, so here's what we've got to work out. We know that that happens, yeah? The Actus Reus is fulfilled. Insidia did something that circumvented the game mechanics and gave them a distinct advantage. The Actus Reus is fulfilled, so that's fine. However, what about the mens rea? Did they have the state of mind? Did they know? Did they reasonably suspect? I suggest no, they did not. Because where is a rogue, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, a rogue is at the back, yeah? Attacking from behind. In a massive arena whereby there's tons of spell effects going off everywhere, and no doubt is stabbing the arse of a 30-foot monster and can't see anything. So there's tons of spell effects in a 25-man raid going off this thing. Does anyone notice the Sauronite bomb? No. No, they don't. Nobody notices the Sauronite bomb, and the rogue, who is the only one who notices the Sauronite bomb, does not notice the platform because he is behind the enemy and can't see anything. And therein lies, ladies and gentlemen, the conclusion on that particular matter. They could not have known. It is extremely unlikely. We'll be right back after this, folks, with some more on this debate and taking your emails here on Blue Please on cynicalbrit.com. Enjoy.